Captain Jake Morrison had always believed that the universe had a twisted sense of humor. How else could you explain a guy who'd flunked out of military academy, spent 3 years as a space janitor, and somehow ended up as Earth's chief diplomatic negotiator? The promotion had come with a fancy title, a barely functioning shuttle, and the kind of mission that usually ended with someone getting vaporized. So let me get this straight, Jake muttered to his companion as he adjusted his rumpled uniform. The Vorthak Empire has conquered half the galaxy, they've never lost a single battle, and Command thinks sending me to negotiate is somehow going to work out? His companion, a small orange tabby with one eye and an attitude problem, merely flicked her tail dismissively. Princess Whiskers had been Jake's roommate for 2 years now, ever since he'd found her hiding in a supply closet on Station Beta 7. The vet had said she was spirited, which Jake had quickly learned was professional code for, "This cat will destroy everything you own and somehow make it your fault." "You know what, Princess? I think they're hoping I'll screw this up so badly that the Vorthak will just laugh themselves to death." Jake scratched behind her ears, earning a grudging purr. "At least that way, technically, we win." The shuttle's navigation system cheerfully announced their approach to Luna Base, where the Vorthak delegation was waiting. Jake had read their files during the flight. 8-foot-tall reptilian warriors with a documented history of turning entire planets into parking lots. Their leader, Commander Threx, had personally overseen the conquest of 17 star systems. The guy collected the skulls of defeated enemies as trophies. "Standard diplomatic protocol says I should leave you in quarters," Jake informed Princess Whiskers, who was currently attempting to fit herself into a box that was clearly too small. But honestly, at this point, what's the worst that could happen? The cat managed to wedge herself into the box and gave him a look that clearly said, "Challenge accepted." Jake sighed and grabbed the portable carrier from the storage compartment. "Come on, Furball, let's go make galactic history. Or at least provide some entertainment before they blast us into atoms." As their shuttle docked with Luna Base, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that Princess Whiskers looked unusually pleased with herself. In his experience, that was never a good sign. The Vorthak Warfleet hung in space like a collection of metallic nightmares, each ship bristling with enough firepower to turn a moon into gravel. Jake pressed his face against the observation deck window and whistled low. "Well, Princess, they certainly don't believe in subtle intimidation tactics." Princess Whiskers, now secured in her carrier with about as much enthusiasm as a tax audit, responded with a yowl that roughly translated to, "I will remember this betrayal forever." "Ambassador Morrison," came a nervous voice behind him. Lieutenant Torres, the base's communications officer, looked like he'd been subsisting on nothing but coffee and anxiety for the past week. "The Vorthak delegation is ready to begin negotiations. Commander Threx is waiting." Jake could practically hear the unspoken and getting increasingly murderous in Torres's tone. "Right. Time for some good old-fashioned human diplomacy." He picked up the carrier, ignoring Princess Whiskers' indignant protests, and headed toward the conference room. The doors hissed open to reveal what could only be described as a mobile apocalypse in formal wear. Commander Threx stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled hide bearing the scars of countless battles. His yellow eyes fixed on Jake with the intensity of a predator sizing up its next meal. Behind him, 3 equally intimidating Vorthak officers flanked the negotiation table like living weapons. "So," Threk's voice rumbled like distant thunder, "Earth sends a single human and expects mercy?" Jake set Princess Whiskers' carrier on the table and pulled out a folding chair. "Actually, I brought snacks." He produced a bag of pretzels from his jacket pocket. "Want some? They're the good kind, not the stale-based cafeteria ones." The Vorthak delegation exchanged glances. This was clearly not going according to their script. "You mock the Vorthak Empire with food offerings." Threx leaned forward, his claws scraping against the metal table. "Mock? Dude, I'm genuinely trying to be hospitable here." Jake popped a pretzel into his mouth. "Though I guess if you're lactose intolerant, I probably shouldn't offer you the cheese crackers." From inside the carrier came a series of increasingly agitated meows. Princess Whiskers had apparently decided that being ignored was worse than being transported. "What?" Threx demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "Is that sound?" Jake glanced at the carrier as if just remembering it was there. "Oh, that's just Princess Whiskers. She's not big on travel, or being contained, or pretty much anything that isn't her idea, really." The Vorthak officers were now staring at the carrier with what Jake could only describe as professional interest. One of them, a particularly scarred individual with captain's insignia, whispered something urgently to Threx. "You brought a weapon to negotiations?" Threx's eyes narrowed. "Weapon? She's a cat. Well, Technically a rescue cat, but that's more of a backstory thing. The whispered conversation among the Vorthok became more intense. Jake caught fragments, small predator, psychological warfare, and something that sounded like advanced Earth tactics. Okay, Jake said slowly. I'm getting the feeling we're not quite on the same page here. Jake should have known better than to underestimate Princess Whisker's escape artistry. The cat had once broken out of a supposedly inescapable pet hotel by somehow learning to operate the electronic lock system. A simple carrier latch was basically an insult to her intelligence. The first sign of trouble was the sudden silence from inside the carrier. Jake had learned to fear that silence more than any amount of yowling. As I was saying, Jake continued, trying to maintain diplomatic composure, Earth's terms are pretty reasonable. We're talking about a simple non-aggression pact, maybe some trade agreements for... Click. The carrier door swung open with the casual ease of a bank vault being cracked by a master thief. Princess Whiskers emerged like a furry orange missile, took one look at the assembled Vorthak delegation, and apparently decided they needed to be personally inspected. Oh, come on, Princess, Jake sighed. We talked about this. Commander Threk's reaction was immediate and instinctive. The 8-foot-tall conqueror of star systems took a step backward as the one-eyed cat hopped onto the negotiation table. The weapon has been deployed. Weapon? Jake blinked. Dude, she's like 8 pounds, on a good day. Princess Whiskers, apparently taking the table inspection seriously, began walking directly toward Threx with the confident swagger of someone who owned the place. Her single eye fixed on the Vorthak commander with the intensity of a laser targeting system. Defensive positions, barked the scarred captain, and all 3 Vorthak officers immediately drew what looked like advanced plasma rifles. The Predator is advancing! Guys, seriously, she's just... Jake started. But Princess Whiskers chose that moment to demonstrate her most devastating ability. She began to purr. The sound filled the conference room like a low-frequency engine warming up. The Vorthak froze, their weapons trained on the small orange cat who was now casually cleaning her paw, as if interdimensional warfare was just another Tuesday. Sonic weapon charging, whispered one of the officers. Sir, energy readings are off the charts. Jake stared at them. Energy readings. She's purring. It means she's happy. Well, or plotting something. With Princess Whiskers, it could go either way. Commander Threk's eyes widened as the cat finished her paw-cleaning routine and began to knead the table surface with her claws. Analysis mode activated. The creature is gathering intelligence on our defensive positions. She's making biscuits, Jake said flatly. It's what cats do when they're comfortable. Though, I'll admit, she's probably judging your interior decorating choices. She's got opinions about that sort of thing. Princess Whiskers, apparently satisfied with her territorial survey, hopped down from the table and began exploring the room with the methodical precision of a security expert. The Vorthak officers rotated to keep their weapons trained on her, creating an absurd ballet of heavily armed warriors tracking a house cat. This is fascinating, Jake muttered. You guys have conquered half the galaxy, but one cat has you doing the military equivalent of the Macarena. That's when Princess Whiskers discovered the ventilation grate. The moment Princess Whiskers disappeared into the ventilation system, the Vorthak war room transformed into something resembling a disaster movie command center. Red lights began flashing, alarms wailed, and Jake found himself watching the most technologically advanced military force in the galaxy lose their collective minds over a cat. Code 7! Code 7! Commander Threx roared into his communication device, his scaled hands trembling as he gripped the table. The Earth Predator has infiltrated our ship's infrastructure. All sections report immediately. Jake leaned back in his chair, pulled out another pretzel, and decided to enjoy the show. You know, I'm starting to think you guys might be overthinking this whole situation. Overthinking? Threx whirled around, his yellow eyes blazing with the intensity of a solar flare. Your species has just deployed the most sophisticated infiltration unit we have ever encountered. The creature bypassed our security sensors, conducted reconnaissance on our command structure, and vanished into our life support systems without triggering a single alarm. Well, Jake said thoughtfully, she is pretty good at hide and seek. Last week she disappeared for 6 hours, and I found her inside my sock drawer. Still not sure how she got in there. The scarred captain, whose name tag read Vex, was frantically consulting a handheld scanner. Sir, I'm detecting movement in section C7 through C12. The Predator is systematically mapping our internal defenses. From somewhere in the walls came a series of thumps and what sounded like something small bouncing off metal surfaces. Jake winced. Yeah, she's probably gotten herself stuck. Princess Whiskers has this thing where she's convinced she can fit through any opening, regardless of actual physics. Stuck? Threx's voice dropped to a whisper. The creature is jamming itself into our critical systems? More like she saw something shiny and chased it into a space that's too small for her to back out of. I usually have to use treats to coax her out, but sometimes I just wait for her to get bored, and a new sound echoed through the ventilation system, a low, rhythmic rumbling that seemed to vibrate through the ship's hull. Sonic weapon active, Vex shouted, his scanner now emitting a series of panicked beeps. The Predator is generating subsonic frequencies designed to disable our neural pathways. Jake paused mid-pretzel. That's just her purring. She purrs when she's happy, or when she's found something interesting, or when she's plotting to knock something expensive off a high shelf. Purring? The third Vortac officer, a lean female with intricate scarification, looked up from her tactical display. The creature is analyzing our ship's resonance frequencies to identify structural weaknesses? Sure, let's go with that, Jake said, giving up on rational explanation. Though between you and me, she's probably just found a warm spot near your engine room. Princess Whiskers is basically a heat-seeking missile with whiskers. The rumbling intensified, and suddenly the lights in the conference room flickered. Commander Threx grabbed his weapon, with the desperation of someone facing their worst nightmare. The Predator is interfacing with our power grid, he bellowed. How did your species develop such advanced biotechnological warfare? Biotechnological? Jake blinked. Dude, she's a cat. The most advanced thing about her is that she's figured out how to open doors by jumping on the handles, though I'll admit that took her about 5 minutes to master, which was kind of impressive. From the ventilation system came a new sound, a rhythmic scratching that seemed to be moving through the ship's infrastructure like a biological drill. Territorial marking protocol initiated, Vex reported, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. The creature is claiming sections of our ship as Earth territory. This is a level of psychological warfare we've never encountered. Territorial marking? Jake paused, then groaned. Oh no. Please tell me you don't have any expensive upholstery in your ship. Why? Threx demanded. Because if Princess Whiskers has found your furniture, she's probably sharpening her claws on it right about now. She has very strong opinions about proper claw maintenance. The scratching sound intensified, accompanied by what could only be described as the systematic destruction of something that had probably cost more than Jake's annual salary. The Predator is dismantling our defensive systems, the female officer shrieked. It's using precision strikes to disable our... A new alarm joined the symphony of panic. This one was different, a wet gurgling sound that seemed to come from the ship's food preparation areas. Sir, came a trembling voice over the communication system. The creature has infiltrated the nutrition dispensers. It's doing something to our food supply. Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Please tell me Princess Whiskers didn't find your food replicator. Replicator. Threx's voice had reached a pitch that suggested complete mental breakdown was imminent. The creature is replicating? No, Jake said quickly. She's probably just... Oh, this is not good. The wet, gurgling sound was getting louder. The moment Princess Whiskers discovered the Vortac food replicator system, she apparently decided that the universe had finally provided her with the ultimate entertainment center. Jake could picture it perfectly, his one-eyed orange menace, faced with a machine that produced food on command, treating it like the world's most sophisticated cat toy. Sir, the trembling voice continued over the comm system. The nutrition dispensers are malfunctioning. Everything is coming out as some kind of fish-scented paste. Jake buried his face in his hands. Oh, Princess, what have you done? Commander Threx's eyes were now the size of dinner plates. The creature has infected our entire food supply chain with biological warfare agents. It's converting our sustenance into tuna paste, probably, Jake mumbled through his fingers. She's obsessed with tuna. Last month, she figured out how to open cans by herself. I came home to find 17 empty cans and one very smug cat. The alarms were now playing a symphony of panic. Red lights flashed, sirens wailed, and the ship's computer system began announcing in increasingly frantic tones. Contamination detected. Food synthesis systems comprised. Please evacuate nutrition areas. Evacuation protocols, Threx roared. The Earth Predator has weaponized our own sustenance delivery systems. This is biological warfare at its most insidious. From somewhere deep in the ship came a series of mechanical grinding sounds, followed by what could only be described as the death throes of very expensive equipment. Jake winced as he recognized the distinctive sound of Princess Whiskers in full exploration mode. The same sound that had accompanied the destruction of his coffee maker, his alarm clock, and his supposedly indestructible food processor. "The creature is systematically dismantling our ship's infrastructure," Vex reported, his voice cracking with strain. "It's using precision strikes to disable our life support systems." "She's probably just trying to get comfortable," Jake said weakly. "Princess Whiskers has this thing where she likes to rearrange her environment. She once redesigned my entire apartment by knocking everything off every surface. I think she was going for a minimalist aesthetic." The mechanical grinding intensified, and suddenly the ship's lighting system began flickering in rapid, stroboscopic patterns. The conference room now resembled a disco having a seizure. "Neural disruption warfare," the female officer screamed, clutching her head. "The creature is using photosensitive attacks to disable our cognitive functions." "Or she's playing with your light switches," Jake suggested. "She does that at my place. I've learned to sleep with a flashlight." But it was the next sound that really sent the Vortec delegation into full panic mode. A wet, splattering noise echoed through the ship's corridors, followed by the distinctive sound of something small and furry making the kind of noise that cat owners universally dread. "Oh no," Jake breathed. "She's going to cough up a hairball." The sound that emerged from the ventilation system was like nothing the Vortec had ever heard. It was part choking, part retching, and entirely disgusting. It was also, Jake knew from experience, completely harmless. Just Princess Whiskers clearing her digestive system in the way that cats had been doing for millennia. But to the Vortec delegation it sounded like the prelude to Armageddon. "Chemical weapon deployment," Threx roared, his composure finally snapping completely. "The creature is releasing toxic agents into our air supply. This is nerve gas. This is biological terrorism of the highest order." "It's just a hairball," Jake said, but his voice was lost in the chaos. The ship's emergency systems were now in full meltdown mode. Every alarm in the Vortec arsenal was blaring simultaneously, creating a cacophony that would have made a dying whale jealous. The lights were strobing like a rave gone wrong, and the food replicators were apparently now producing nothing but what smelled like a seafood processing plant explosion. "Sir," came another panicked voice over the comm, "the creature has somehow interfaced with our main computer core. It's rewriting our tactical databases." Jake frowned. "Rewriting your what now?" "The Predator is updating our intelligence files with Earth's military capabilities," Vex explained, his hands shaking as he consulted his scanner. "It's downloading classified information directly from our strategic planning systems." "She's probably just walking on your keyboard," Jake said. "Princess Whiskers has this talent for stepping on exactly the wrong buttons at exactly the wrong time. She once ordered $300 worth of cat treats from my computer while I was in the shower." But Commander Threx was beyond rational thought. His yellow eyes were wide with the kind of terror usually reserved for cosmic horror scenarios. "This is not a negotiation," he whispered. "This is a demonstration. Earth is showing us the futility of resistance." "Resistance to what?" Jake asked, genuinely confused. "To your superior military technology?" Threx's voice cracked. "You've deployed a single infiltration unit that has systematically disabled our entire fleet. Our food systems are compromised, our computer networks are corrupted, our life support is failing, and our crew is being subjected to neurological warfare." From the ventilation system came a new sound, a soft, contented purring that suggested Princess Whiskers had found something particularly interesting to play with. "Oh good," Jake muttered. "She's happy. That's either very good news or very bad news. With Princess Whiskers it's usually hard to tell until after the property damage assessment." The purring was apparently the final straw. Commander Threx stood up so fast his chair toppled backward, his scaled hands raised in what Jake suddenly realized was a gesture of surrender. "Enough!" Threx bellowed. "We yield. We acknowledge Earth's superior tactical capabilities. Please, call off your weapon before it destroys our entire fleet." Jake stared at him. "You want me to call off my cat?" "Yes, before it's too late. We offer immediate cessation of hostilities and full diplomatic immunity for all Earth territories." Jake looked around the chaos-filled conference room, at the flashing lights, the blaring alarms, and the three most feared military commanders in the galaxy cowering in terror from a one-eyed rescue cat who was probably just looking for a comfortable place to nap. "You know what?" Jake said finally. "I think we can work with that." The formal surrender of the Vortec Empire to a house cat was, Jake reflected, probably not going to make it into the official diplomatic records. At least not in any version that would preserve his career prospects. Commander Threx stood at attention, his massive frame rigid with the kind of military precision that suggested he was treating this moment with the gravity of a cosmic realignment. Which, from his perspective, it probably was. "By the authority vested in me by the Vorthak High Command," Threx intoned, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds, "I hereby offer the unconditional surrender of the Vorthak Empire to the Earth Coalition, in recognition of your superior tactical capabilities and the devastating effectiveness of your micro-predator deployment system." Jake glanced at the ventilation grate where Princess Whiskers had last been heard systematically dismantling what sounded like a very expensive piece of machinery. "You know, I'm pretty sure she's just looking for a warm place to take a nap." A nap? Vex's scarred face contorted with confusion. "The weapon? Sleeps?" "Oh yeah," Jake nodded. "Princess Whiskers is basically a professional sleeper. She puts in about 16 hours a day, sometimes more if the weather's nice. Though she does her best work between 3 and 4 in the morning, when she likes to run laps around my apartment and knock things off shelves." "It conducts nocturnal reconnaissance missions," the female officer whispered, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "The Predator is gathering intelligence during sleep cycles, when defenses are at their weakest." "Sure," Jake said, giving up on rational explanation. "Let's call it reconnaissance." As if summoned by the conversation, Princess Whiskers emerged from the ventilation system with the casual confidence of someone who had just rearranged the universe to her satisfaction. She was covered in what appeared to be metallic dust, had somehow acquired a small piece of advanced circuitry that was now dangling from her collar like a trophy, and wore the unmistakable expression of a cat who had accomplished something monumentally destructive. She surveyed the assembled Vorthog delegation with her single eye, apparently found them acceptable, and proceeded to hop onto the negotiation table with the easy grace of someone claiming territory that had always been rightfully theirs. "Territorial acquisition complete," Threx breathed. "The Predator is claiming our command center as Earth territory." Princess Whiskers ignored the political implications of her actions and began the serious business of grooming the metallic dust from her fur. The rhythmic sound of her tongue against her coat filled the suddenly silent conference room with the kind of mundane domesticity that made the entire situation even more surreal. She's cleaning herself," Vex observed, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. Is this a threat display?" "It's hygiene," Jake said. "Princess Whiskers has very high standards for personal cleanliness. She once spent 3 hours grooming herself after I accidentally got her wet with a spray bottle." The cat finished her cleaning routine and, apparently satisfied with her appearance, began to knead the surface of the negotiation table with her claws. The sound of metal being systematically perforated filled the room like a very small, very precise construction project. "Analysis mode reactivated," the female officer whispered. "The Predator is evaluating our defensive materials for structural vulnerabilities." "She's making biscuits," Jake corrected. "It's what cats do when they're happy, though I'll admit she's probably judging your choice of table materials. Princess Whiskers has opinions about proper scratching surfaces." Commander Threx pulled out an official-looking document covered in what appeared to be galactic legal text. "The terms of surrender are simple," he announced. "The Vorthak Empire will immediately cease all hostile actions against Earth territories. We will provide full technological and military support for Earth's defensive needs. We will establish trade agreements favorable to Earth interests, and we will formally recognize Earth's sovereignty over all disputed territories." "That's actually pretty generous," Jake said, genuinely surprised. "Though, I have to ask, what exactly do you want in return?" Threx's yellow eyes fixed on Princess Whiskers, who had finished her biscuit-making routine and was now circling the table with the methodical precision of someone selecting the perfect napping spot. "We want assurance that Earth will not deploy additional micro-predator units against our remaining territories." "You want me to promise not to bring more cats to diplomatic meetings?" "Exactly." Jake considered this. On one hand, it seemed like a reasonable request. On the other hand, Princess Whiskers had just accidentally negotiated the most favorable peace treaty in human history, and he was pretty sure she'd done it entirely by accident while looking for somewhere comfortable to sleep. "I think we can work with that," he said finally. Princess Whiskers chose that moment to settle into a perfect circle in the exact center of the negotiation table, her purring filling the room with the sound of a tiny, contented engine. Her single eye closed, her breathing deepened, and within moments she was fast asleep on top of the most important diplomatic document in galactic history. "The weapon has entered standby mode," Threx observed, with something that might have been relief. "The immediate threat has been neutralized." "She's taking a nap," Jake said, "though I wouldn't recommend trying to move her. Princess Whiskers gets cranky when her sleep schedule is disrupted, and trust me, you don't want to see her cranky." The Vorthak delegation exchanged glances, filled with the kind of terror usually reserved for cosmic horror scenarios. "We will not disturb the micropredator," Threk said quickly. "The treaty will be signed around its current position." And so it was that the most feared military force in the galaxy formally surrendered to Earth, while a one-eyed orange cat named Princess Whiskers slept peacefully on their surrender documents, occasionally twitching her whiskers in what the Vortak would later describe as tactical dream sequences. Within hours, news of Earth's brilliant victory had spread throughout the galaxy. Military academies began studying the Princess Whiskers Gambit as the most sophisticated psychological warfare operation in recorded history. Earth's reputation as a species of master tacticians was secured forever. Jake got promoted to admiral, though he was pretty sure it was mostly to keep him quiet about how the whole thing had actually happened. Princess Whiskers got a medal, though she seemed more interested in using it as a new toy than wearing it with any sense of pride. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, every hostile alien species that had ever considered invading Earth took one look at the reports of the micro-predator deployment system, and decided that maybe, just maybe, it would be better to try their luck with literally anyone else. After all, if humans could end a war with a house cat, what else were they capable of? Princess Whiskers, blissfully unaware of her new status as the most feared weapon in the galaxy, continued her important work of sleeping 16 hours a day and knocking things off shelves. Some things, Jake reflected, were more important than galactic conquest. Like finding the perfect sunny spot for an afternoon nap,